Hi, welcome to Positively Crafty. My name's Danielle. I'm one of the reference librarians at Lincoln Library. Today, we're going to make these fabulous no-sew t-shirt bags. So, as you can tell, this used to be a John Mayer t-shirt from one of his tours. And then this is one of my others that is from Dolphin Island, Alabama. So I really liked these shirts when I picked them out, but they didn't fit properly, so I never actually wore them. So I decided to repurpose them, and I use them at the grocery store. You throw them in the wash after you bring your groceries home, and they stay sanitized. And these are really simple to do. So we need a few supplies, a kitchen bowl. It doesn't need to be glass. We're just using it for the rim. An old t-shirt. Doesn't matter what size it is. If you want to use an old kid's t-shirt, one of your old college t-shirts, some sharp scissors, a marker, make sure it works, and something with a straight edge. So I'm going to use this ruler, but you can use a book or an envelope if that's what you have handy at home. So step 1 on our project is to cut off the sleeves of our t-shirt. So I'm simply going to follow the seam on the lines. Right, there's one side, and then we're going to go over and do the other side as well. Okay, so now our t-shirt has no sleeves. And the second step, we are going to take our bowl and put it along the top of the t-shirt, that part that goes right by your neck. And we are going to take our marker and trace the bowl. And you can do the different depths that you want with this, keeping in mind that as you put stuff into your bag, the stretchier the bag is going to get. So if you have a whole bunch or a lot of heavy produce in there, it is going to stretch it out a little bit. So you don't want to make it too long or too deep either. Okay, so simply trace the line, and then I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut along that line. The nice thing about this is that it doesn't need to be perfect. A little bit of imperfection gives it some extra character. And now we have what looks like a tank top or a bag without a bottom. Okay? So we're going to lay our t-shirt back down flat. Okay, if you haven't already, go ahead and turn your t-shirt inside out. And if you're very much of a perfectionist, you may want to do that before you do the step we did previous, so that you don't have a marker mark on your t-shirt. Okay, so my last bags I did around 9.5 inches deep, and I think that that's a little bit too heavy. They stretch a bit more than I would like. So I am going to do these ones about 7.5 inches deep, based off of where the t-shirt and sleeve ends, and measuring down 7.5 inches from there. mark both sides at 7.5 inches just to make sure that it's lined up properly. Okay, and then we're just going to mark again, straight line this time. If you don't have a ruler, that's okay, you can guesstimate. If you cut it and you think it's a little bit, or draw a line and you think, oh, that might be too shallow or too deep, go ahead and just mark again. Now, this is cutting off quite a lot of my t-shirt, and I don't want the fringe part that we will tie at the end to be that long, so I'm going to go ahead and cut off about half of this length. Right. If any of you have ever made a no-sew blanket before or pillowcase, this is a similar process. We're going to cut this bottom part in blocks about 1 inch to 3/4 of an inch thick up to this line that we drew. Doesn't need to be an exact science. Okay, so the bottom of our t-shirt is now all fringed. Step is to cut little dashes in the center of our little tabs that we have here. Now I'm going to just eyeball it and do about 3/4 to an inch below the line. And I'm going to cut through both pieces front and back together. So there's a little tiny hole in between them. And we're going to go ahead and do the full line. You want to make sure that these little holes are large enough for the string, the tab before, to go through it. So I think my very first one might have actually been a tiny bit too small, but that's okay because we could go back and make it a little bit larger. Okay, we continue on. Okay. Okay, now that all of our tabs have little cuts inside them, we are going to take our first two, and we're going to take the one on the right and put it through the tab on the left's hole. And as we're doing this, we're doing the front and back tabs, both of these together. And then you'll take the tab on the left again, which should have been the second tab in your row, and we're going to put the tab on the right through that hole. We're going to continue this, putting the tab on the left through the hole on the tab on the right until we get to the very end of the row. The very last one, I'm going to start by knotting it, and in order to knot this, what I'm going to do, you'll see it's a bit of a braid, but you can still tell which tabs originated together. So I'm going to tie knots into alternating ones. So that it gives it some extra support. I'm just going to go through and add some knots as I see needed. You'll notice almost all your tabs are on the one side probably. Alright, now I've got all of these knotted. There are two different options here. You can just leave these little fringe pieces there, and when you turn your bag back inside out the opposite way, you won't see any of them, or you can trim them if it bothers you having those in your bag. Now, the reason that we do this little braided method is so that there aren't little holes in between our knots. It also gives some extra support, as we said before. Now, you'll notice that the sleeves on this t-shirt were rather pretty long, so I'm going to go ahead and add a knot to the top of my sleeves as well, because I noticed with one of my previous bags that the sleeves were about the same length, and when I'm holding it with the items in it, they just stretch even more. Okay. Now this part is optional, and if you really like that fringe on the inside, you have the option of leaving that fringe on the outside if you wanted to leave your t-shirt right side out before you start knotting and braiding your fringe together. That's all up to you. Now I've got one of my old summer reading program t-shirts made into a bag that I can take to work and bring home different library books home to read. Happy crafting!